The most isolated ranger in the lower 48 states quit his job at 8 in the morning, and the only thing anyone found on his desk was one sentence and a set of coordinates. If you want to understand how alone Michael was out there, understand this. He worked the thoroughfare, the most remote outpost in the continental United States. The nearest road is a 2-day hike. 6 seasons he'd worked it. He knew every drainage, every game trail, every hot spring in 50 square miles. He was the last person on Earth you'd expect to spook. That morning, he radioed base at 8 for his standard check-in. Normal, routine, nothing in his voice. 12 minutes later, he radioed again. Unscheduled, and this one wasn't routine. He told base he was leaving his post. He said he was writing his resignation right then. And then he said one line that the man on the other end wrote down word for word, because of how Michael said it. He said, "The coordinates are the reason." Then he signed off, and he would not answer the radio again. His supervisor hiked in the next morning. A full day's hike, not knowing what he'd find. What he found was worse than a mess. It was order. The cabin was immaculate. Michael's uniform was folded on the bunk. His duty weapon was locked in the cabinet where it belonged. Everything squared away, like a man closing up a life on purpose. The resignation was on the desk, handwritten on park letterhead. One sentence. Effective immediately, I will not return to this or any federal posting. And under it, a set of coordinates. Nothing else, no explanation, just numbers. His supervisor plotted them. They resolved to a point deep in the thoroughfare backcountry, and there was nothing there. No trail, no hot spring, no lake, no peak, no feature of any kind on any map. Just a spot in the wilderness that a 6-season veteran had walked away from his entire career to write down. When investigators finally sat down with Michael, they asked him the obvious thing. What's at the coordinates? What do they mean? Why did you write them? He wouldn't say. Not evasive, they said. More like a man who had decided some things are safer not spoken. He answered every other question. He confirmed the letter was his. He confirmed the handwriting. But every time they came back to the coordinates, he went quiet and stayed quiet. He never returned to any park. He's never spoken publicly about that morning. And the man who hiked in to find that folded uniform told me the thing he can't shake isn't the coordinates themselves. It's that Michael checked in at 8 sounding completely fine, and 12 minutes later he was a different man. Whatever changed him, it happened in those 12 minutes, alone, in the most remote place a person can be in this country. And nobody knows what was out there with him. A 6-season veteran, fine at 8 in the morning, gone 12 minutes later, leaving a folded uniform and a set of coordinates pointing at nothing on any map. Before the next account, tell me what time it is where you are right now. Drop it in the comments. I want to see how many of you are out there in the dark tonight, and I read every single one. We're pushing toward 10,000 subscribers before the end of the month. If this account means something to you, hit subscribe. Everyone counts. And here's what I can't answer. Something changed that man in 12 minutes, alone, 2 days' hike from another human being. Was it something he saw out there, or something he finally understood about a place he thought he knew? One means he ran from a thing. The other means he ran from an idea. Drop your answer below. Dana had never in her life been west of the Mississippi, so nobody could explain how she wrote down a set of coordinates in Wyoming. The exact ones a ranger she'd never met had written 2 years before. She wasn't a backcountry ranger, that's important. She worked the front desk at Sugarlands, the big visitor center in the Smokies. Interpretive ranger, school groups, trail maps, telling tourists which overlook to catch at sunset. 3 years there, steady, well-liked, The last person you'd build a scary story around. One Tuesday in October, she opened the center at 8, like always. By 8:30, she had locked the doors, taped a handwritten sign to the glass that said "closed until further notice," and left her resignation on the supervisor's desk. 2 sentences. The first was a normal resignation. The second was a set of coordinates. And here's where it stops being a woman having a bad morning. Those coordinates were in Wyoming, in the Yellowstone backcountry. The identical numbers a backcountry ranger named Michael had written on his own resignation 2 years earlier and a continent away. Dana had never worked out west. She'd never been to Yellowstone. She had no connection to Michael. Different parks, different bosses, different training. No shared anything. 2 rangers, 2 years apart, who never crossed paths in their lives, and the same string of numbers on both letters. When they asked Dana how she knew those coordinates, her answer is the part that stays with people. She didn't say she'd read them somewhere. She didn't claim some explanation. She said she didn't know how she knew them. She said she just knew she had to write them down before she left, and she couldn't tell them why, and it frightened her more than it frightened them. She didn't come back either. She left Park Service entirely and moved into other work. She's talked about it exactly once, to a friend who passed it to us, and the only thing she'd say about that morning was that she'd woken up that day with the numbers already in her head, clear as her own phone number, and the feeling that she would not have a single peaceful hour until she got them out of herself and onto paper. She has no idea what they mean. She has no idea where they came from. And she has never been able to explain why. The moment she wrote them down and walked out, the feeling finally stopped. A front desk ranger who'd never been out west, writing the exact coordinates of a place in Wyoming she had no way to know, and quitting the same morning to do it. Here's what I can't settle. 2 people, no connection, same numbers. Either that's a coincidence so enormous it barely counts as one, or something put those coordinates into 2 separate heads 2 years apart. One of those is hard to believe. The other is hard to sleep on. Tell me which one you land on. The last ranger wrote more than numbers. He left 2 full pages, and on the second page, under the same coordinates, 1 line about what they are. That's next. The third ranger left 2 pages instead of 2 sentences, and the first page was the account of something he'd run into on a night patrol 3 weeks before he quit. David was law enforcement at the Hoe, in Olympic. 15 years in, the kind of ranger who's seen everything the job throws at you and doesn't rattle. His resignation was dated in March, and unlike the other 2, he explained himself. Or he tried to. The first page was hard to read. Not the handwriting, the content. It jumped around. It was the writing of a steady man trying to describe something that didn't fit anywhere in 15 years of training. He wrote about a solo patrol 3 weeks earlier, deep in the rainforest at night, where the canopy is so thick no moon reaches the ground. He wrote that he'd become certain, over about an hour, that he was being paced. Something was moving with him through the dark, matching him, staying just off the trail. He wrote that when he finally stopped and put his light into the trees, there was something there, and it did not move away from the light the way every animal he'd ever encountered had. He wrote that it looked at him. And then the page breaks off into fragments that don't fully connect. The second page was the coordinates, the same ones. Michael's coordinates, Dana's coordinates, and under them 1 line, pressed hard enough into the paper that you could feel it on the back of the page. These are not a place. These are a boundary. Do not cross it. He walked off mid-shift. His cruiser was found at a trailhead, locked, and David has never been found. Not that day, not since. Now, I want to be careful here, because it would be easy to tell you the government sealed this up. I can't tell you that, because I don't know it. What I can tell you is what's actually strange, and it's strange enough. Those coordinates point to a spot in an unsurveyed stretch of national forest. And when people went looking for a reason, a missing person there, a death, a search operation, anything that would explain why 3 rangers fixated on that one point, they found nothing. No case, no incident, no record of anything ever happening there at all, which leaves the only question that actually matters, and it's not what's at the coordinates. 3 rangers, 3 parks, 3 different years, none of them connected, all of them writing down the same point on the earth and then walking out of their lives. The question is who told them to. A 15-year veteran paced through the dark by something that wouldn't leave the light, who then wrote the same coordinates as 2 strangers and called them a boundary. Here's the real question. 3 people, no connection, 3 years apart, all landed on the same point and the same urge to leave. Was each of them running from their own separate encounter, and the matching numbers are the one thing nobody can explain away? Or is it worse, that all 3 ran from the same thing, and it's patient enough to take years between visits? Tell me which one you believe. Subscribe to Obscure Nights right now. 3 rangers, 3 parks, 3 years apart. And I'll be honest with you, this is the one account where I have less of an answer than usual, because 2 of these people are still alive and won't explain, and the 3rd never came home. But sit with what actually connects them, because it isn't the mystical part. It's this. All 3 were experienced. All 3 knew their ground cold. And all 3 reached a moment where the most cautious thing a trained person could do was not investigate, not report, not push further, but leave, completely, and never go back. Michael folded his uniform. Dana locked the doors. David wrote, "Do not cross it." Every one of them chose to walk away rather than understand. I can't tell you what's at those coordinates, but I can tell you the instinct all 3 trusted is a real one, and it's worth carrying. Lesson 1. When something out there feels wrong on a level you can't argue with, you're allowed to leave. You don't need proof. You don't need a photograph or an explanation that would satisfy anyone else. Every one of these rangers acted on a certainty they couldn't justify on paper, and the 2 who are alive are the 2 who left. Your instinct is older than your training. Trust it. Lesson 2. If something paces you in the dark and won't leave your light, do not investigate it. David's own account describes the exact wrong move. Stopping, putting his light into the trees to find the thing. Whatever's pacing you, you do not need to see it. Keep moving toward open ground, toward people, toward your vehicle, and let it stay behind you. Lesson 3. Leave a real trip plan every time with a real person. The rangers in these stories had radios and check-ins and a whole agency behind them, and it still took a full day to reach the first one. You don't have that. Tell someone exactly where you're going and exactly when you'll be back, so that if the day ever comes that you walk out of your own life at a trailhead, somebody knows where to start. Thank you for trusting Obscure Nights with these accounts. If you have an encounter of your own, our submission email is in the channel bio. We read every single one. This is Obscure Nights, where the cases nobody talks about get told the way they actually happened. Good night.